right, everybody. Welcome to Michael Maher Live. We are officially dubbed the most original name show on the entire interwebs. And we talk all about brands staying relevant in a fast-changing world, blah, blah, blah. Insert show title here. We bring people on just to help brands to remain relevant. That's pretty much it. And we can talk about all kinds of stuff. And today, I think we're going to talk about something that a lot of people are talking about. They're talking about GEO, generative AI, engine optimization, however you want to phrase that. Some people are calling it AEO, AI engine optimization, whatever it is, you want to be found by LLMs. And today, Shane Tepper, founder of Retina Media, is going to tell us a little bit more about what he does and how he actually helps businesses to do that. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
It's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So, for the past quarter century or more, Google has dominated the search game, right? You type in a handful of keywords into Google search bar, you get 10 blue links. The onus is on you, the user, to click through those links, find what's relevant, synthesize, whatever information you need to make whatever decision it is you need to make. It's time consuming, it's inefficient, and consequently, since the emergence of LLMs and AI assistants, a lot of people are moving over to those tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, and the like. They're able to type in a much more contextualized and detailed prompt, specific to their use case. I work primarily with B2B brands. So, instead of typing in, best employee management software, you might type in something like, I am the CMO of a mid-market financial services company. I manage a marketing team of 50, and we need something to help us evaluate the performance of our employees, something like that. Much longer, much more detailed, much more context provided. And then instead of sifting through a bunch of links, the AI goes out, performs multiple searches for you. Maybe it references its training data, and it synthesizes an answer specific to you, specific to your query in real time. And what I do is I help brands be the answer when their highest intent buyers are asking queries on these platforms.
As you're saying this, I'm realizing something, and maybe this is super obvious. In order to use Google well, you really don't need any training. You can kind of just plop something in there, and there's a lot that has to be assumed from an intent perspective. In order to use an LLM well, now the models have gotten a lot better and are a lot more intuitive, but I really think to get the better output, you can't put as much crap in. And I think people will naturally refine their own searches. And I know that Google has said when people use Gemini, it actually creates more searches. And so it's actually helping brands to be more discoverable, which I don't know. I would argue that maybe that's not actually helpful, because I know a lot of brands are seeing maybe more impressions of their brand name being used inside of like a Gemini AI overview, but not necessarily seeing the same number of clicks or visits to their site. Long story short, you really have to give good inputs in order to get good outputs. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. You have to give the better the input, the more context you provide to help the engine, retrieve the information that you want. The better able it's going to be able to retrieve that information, synthesize an answer that's relevant to you.
I was being a little facetious because I knew you had to be better trained, but like as you're saying that, I'm realizing it really does make a big difference, because it's looking to have a conversation with you, this LLM. And I've heard many people on my team say, yeah, I did something with ChatGPT and he gave me this thing. And I was like, oh, I'm just thinking it's a tool, but people are like thinking of it as a person.
Yeah, anthropomorphizing the LLM. Yeah, and that's right. That's another reason why people more and more people prefer to interact with LLMs, is because they can engage with it in a natural conversational way. Sense. They're not, trying to reduce their complex need down to 3 to 7 keywords. They can be like, "Yo, ChatGPT," however your conversational style.
Yeah.
And then
I need to start talking to ChatGPT like that.
Yeah.
Yo, ChatGPT, give me some recommendations.
Tell me what's up.
What's good, Claude? And Claude's like, I don't know because I don't have emotions and feelings, but I'd like to help you today. What can I do?
Yes, yes, that's typically what Claude would say. That's exactly right.
What is what is the main, okay, before I ask this question, my agency Cartology, all we do is help brands to win and grow on Amazon. So that means a lot of different things. But one of the biggest issues that I see is brands they don't really have a growth strategy. And that sounds really cliche, but the reality is they're spending on ads, but they're not really spending on the right stuff. They have a product detail page. Product detail page isn't maximizing their return, and maybe they're not configured properly on the Amazon side of things. But namely on the ad side, they spend in the wrong places. Like, so they're not really spending for growth. That's what no growth strategy means. But I can identify that pretty quickly. When you talk with businesses, overarching, is there like hey, I typically see this one thing happening that brands are doing wrong? And it could be as basic as they just aren't even thinking about it at all.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely recognizing at this point that these LLMs, these AI interfaces, are a valuable, growth vector for them. Where the disparity exists is between that recognition and their ability to do anything about it, to act strategically, to understand how these systems work in order to properly utilize them, maximize them as growth channels. By growth channel, we mean, activity that will fill pipeline, right, and move pipeline.
Yeah.
So that's the first mentality you have to adopt when you approach the LLM discoverability, visibility issue. And what that means is you need to optimize for queries that your buyers are actually asking when they're in buying mode, right? From awareness, discovery, all the way through decision, right? With that consideration part being probably the most important when they're, comparing brands, comparing features, that sort of a thing. So it really starts with having a query set and tracking the responses to those queries that is representative of what your highest intent buyers are actually searching for in these systems.
What are you using? I'm trying to think of the name of the tool now. There's a tool that Ahrefs has that's called something input. I'll look it up. I'll find it. But they're basically doing that. They're creating, it sounds like, profiles, and then they're creating queries and seeing what results come up so that you can then frame your data appropriately. You know what I'm talking about? Are
Yes,
you
absolutely.
are you using tools like that essentially?
So yeah, a number of the legacy SEO, major players, Ahrefs, SEMrush, they're developing, tools to help.
Ahrefs, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I knew you were talking about.
Whatever. Who cares?
Who gives a crap? So yeah, you're seeing a lot of these legacy SEO tools that are developing these capabilities to be able to track prompts. There's also a massive new crop of brand new tools that are GEO specific that have popped up to help address this need. I actually internally use a proprietary tool that we've developed. To analyze, to develop the queries that are the synthetic buyer queries representative of what we believe that
is that something that you at Retina Media use, or do you give access to people that you work with to use it as well, or it's just something that really only you would need to use because you're the expert that's going in and doing this stuff?
That's a fantastic question. So you're talking about the difference between a product like a SaaS product and like an internal tool. For now, this is just an internal tool that we use. It's a proprietary tool.
Keywords being for now. For now.
Check in 6 months, a year. Maybe that will have changed.
But the reality is, if you're performing a service for people or minimally consulting with them, you need this tool to help you to be valuable. It may not be something that they need at this exact moment from an adoption standpoint.
I would say they need this tool, or at least need the services of the agency that uses this tool.
Sure. Yes, that's what I mean. Is you're going to be the one that's going to be better adept at using it at this very.
That's correct. That's correct. And I think the fact that, with software, you're continuously refining, continuously iterating, continuously improving. And I think, we want to, this is a relatively new thing that we've developed. We want to become really good at using it. We want to become really, really good practitioners with this tool before we, unleash it on the public. So that's what we're focused on now.
when you work with a brand, what's a typical process that you go through in order to help them understand how discoverable they are and then start to make adjustments to that discoverability?
Sure. Great question. What we initially do is we pull together what I would refer to as the source of truth on this brand. So we have an automated process that goes out and analyzes the brand's website. It analyzes competitors' website. It enriches that with information about their specific category, so we can understand, who they are, what their offerings are, what pain points they're solving, who their ICPs are, right? Who their ideal customers are, their features, who their competitors are, other things happening in the industry, and we pull this together into a source of truth document.
Okay.
This is after we sign the engagement. We then go back to the brand and we're like, here's what we've learned about your brand. Can you validate this? Right. So they're like, they look at it and maybe we've identified a competitor as a secondary competitor when it's in fact a primary competitor. So they're like, move that.
Gotcha.
Here. They're like, you missed this feature or something like that. So we kind of have a conversation, and then we basically lock in the source of truth. This is a knowledge graph that is representative of everything that is publicly known about the company according to the internet, right? And then we use that as the basis for everything downstream of there. So generating our queries, running the queries through LLMs for B2B in particular. ChatGPT and Perplexity are the two most widely used for now.
Sure.
And then we analyze that
for searches. Is that what you're saying? ChatGPT and Perplexity are the most used for searches. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Maybe something like Claude is more used for a builder or someone who's using it, maybe not for external stuff, but like building, creating, writing, stuff like that.
Yeah, Claude is my personal workhorse. I love Claude.
I was literally using that before we started talking today. So
Claude,
I just feel like the model is better. I get better outputs. Even going from Sonnet to Opus 4.6, I was working on. I did the branding for my newsletter that I just launched. Well, it hasn't gone out yet, but I've announced it. So now I have to actually launch it and get it out. That's a quick tip for any entrepreneurs out there. If you want to do something, just start doing it and put some pressure on yourself by announcing it publicly, and then you'll have to do it. Just be careful.
There's no pressure like an impending deadline. That's exactly
right. Hey, whatever happened to that newsletter that you just announced that you were gonna do? I had people recently. I literally posted about it last week, and people were like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "I don't know. I literally just posted about it. I haven't sent out my first email." But I like Claude, and I used it to even going from Sonnet to Opus, creating the brand around like brand identity for this newsletter. Those outputs there was a huge difference between.
Yes, so fantastic for writing. It also has a highly technical user base. So Claude Code is excellent for developers. I have the Max subscription, so I'm always on Opus 4.6 extended thinking. You know what I mean? Like, might as well use the most powerful.
I think I'm like mid level. I went up because I was using the lowest level, and then I hit my credit limit. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go up, and but I never want to buy something unless I know that I'm gonna use it. Like, if I'm gonna run more, I'm gonna run in the pair of shoes that I have until I built that habit. Then I will start investing in that.
That's a great way to justify spending more money on something you're actually going to use, whatever it is you buy for that purpose.
So I derailed you, and I'm going to continue to derail you because when you said we build out that source of truth once we sign the engagement, that reminded me of, I don't know if you watch The Office at all, but there's that episode where they're looking for the new boss, and Will Arnett is interviewing, and he's like, I've got like an amazing 5-step plan to help you to grow the business. And Jim and I think Oscar and Gabe are interviewing him, and they're like, okay, what's the plan? He's like, no, I'm not just going to give it to you. And they're like, well, how do we know that you actually have the plan? He's like, I wouldn't just make that up.
That's funny.
He said, give us like, well, how do we even know? Like, this is the interview. He's like, cool. I will give you part 3 of section 2 of part 1.
Just to prove that it actually exists.
Just to prove that it actually exists.
This unhelpful little tidbit.
And then he said, color-coded files. Anyway, that's what ran through my head
Boom.
when you said that. So you build this central source of truth, you get them to verify it, and then you start building everything else off of that, so that when you do run queries, you're actually getting back valuable information and not them. I imagine a brand might come back and say, if you didn't do that, you didn't verify, oh, well, that's not really our competitor. Now you can say, okay, well, we decided on this. Here's what the outputs we're getting,
absolutely.
and here's what is actually
alignment. You need alignment on that.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, then we run the queries, we generate a ton of response data, and then we analyze that response data on a bunch of different dimensions, you know, based on the ICP, based on the buying stage, based on whether they're in a problem-aware state of mind, in which means that they're aware that there's an issue. They might articulate that issue like, you know, how do companies deal with managing performance of their employees versus a solution-aware approach, which would be like, what software solutions can help me deal with this specific problem that, you know, that I'm articulating. We use several different dimensions of analysis, and then we present a data-backed, rigorously data-backed action plan to our clients to help them improve their visibility in these moments where their highest intent buyers are asking questions that demonstrate intention to buy, whether that's shortlisting, comparing vendors, determining the criteria by which they will evaluate vendors, all those different stages, all those different what we refer to as buying jobs that happen during the buying journey.
Okay. Here's the money question, which I'm sure you get asked all the time. How quickly can you see change when you start implementing these GEO strategies?
Yeah. So our recommendations have 3 layers.
You do get asked that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. It's all about outcomes. It's results. Yeah, for sure. Why else are we doing this?
Right. Exactly. Nothing. You see nothing. It's just an opportunity to have a conversation with me. That's it.
That's all. I mean, isn't that enough? Shouldn't that be enough?
Is that not enough for your business? One human's interaction. All right. So what does that look like?
Right. So there are different categories of changes, of fixes that you can implement, right? The first one is technical. For instance, if your sitemap is screwed up, if you have server-side Java rendering for your web pages, LLMs have trouble with that. It's sort of like a binary switch. You know, if you have issues on the technical side that the LLM crawlers are unable to access your site, you're not going to be visible no matter how great your content is.
Sure.
So fixing that kind of stuff, that is, you see some pretty immediate lift when you do that. The second layer,
because they've basically been blocked up to that point.
It's like, you unlock the door. You unlock the come on in, bots.
Okay.
Yeah. Check out my content. And the second one is optimizing existing content, which means you have an existing page on your website that addresses an issue that is important to buyers, but the content is insufficient maybe to draw from to when the answers are being synthesized. So you have to supplement that, or maybe it doesn't have the right freshness signals, right? So like you add a recent date to it, right? Last updated March was today, 10th, 2026, right? And then the third layer is net new content, right? This is content that you're creating in response to the observation that there is this query or cluster of queries which represent an angle of questioning that buyers are pursuing that you don't have any existing content to address, right? So to bring all this back to your original question, how quickly can you see results? We've had clients that have seen results within 2 weeks, very quickly.
Okay. Whereas traditional SEO, it really could. You might see some lift, but it's not like 15 years ago where you made a change and within a week or two you might start to see yourself rank highly. Like in some cases, SEO strategies take months upon months upon months, if not a year.
Right. And it's it's a long-term play, even more so for GEO than SEO. SEO is, you're trying to appear in a fixed hierarchy of rankings, right? So you have your page hygiene stuff, your content stuff. You do that, you're pretty set, because Google obviously updates its algorithm, but it's a lot more stable than any of the LLMs. We've seen that citation sources churn at a rate of 40 to 60% month over month. That
okay, so just to clarify, okay, you were gonna go ahead. You were gonna clarify what that means.
I want to clarify first.
That means that what these LLMs are citing as references can change over half just in the course of a month. So it's not structured like you said with Google, where Google's like, here's our 15 criteria. We're always going to reference these things until we release a new algorithm. Those models are changing so quickly that the references that they're pulling from are also changing. And that means you could become relevant or irrelevant like that.
That's right. And check this out, Michael. This is going to blow your mind even further. If you ask the exact same query, phrase the exact same way in the exact same model 2 consecutive times, there's also going to be an amount of variation there.
Okay. And also Google's limited because it's giving you a web page. That's very different than being in a conversation with an LLM, which is ongoing, and you can go back and revisit that. Whereas like you have to research or refresh the page for Google, but it's limited of like, okay, how many links are people actually how many pages are people actually going to look through? Whereas the conversation is live and ongoing. That's very different. And there's more attention that's captured by the LLM. I believe, I don't have anything to quantify that, but there's attention that's captured inside of that chat versus, okay, like I just looked up a couple words, Google gave me some results. Okay, I'll think about that. I'll click on some links and then maybe I'll come back to it. Like when you're interacting with an LLM, I imagine you're giving it a little bit more attention and you're focusing in on what the answer is. And in that conversation, it's got your
context. Capacity. It has the context of the entire conversation of each turn. It's called, right? It's called multi-turn querying, right?
Okay.
And as you kind of progress through a conversation, it retains the context, the intent, whatever, the semantic meaning of whatever you asked previously in order to give you more refined, better, more relevant responses later down in the conversation.
Okay. Everybody knows, maybe not everybody, most people know that LLMs hallucinate, meaning they give you incorrect information or they just do things that are weird, unless you want to give a different definition of hallucination.
Oh, we'll keep yours.
Okay. I've been listening to Yellow Wolf recently, and he talks a ton about LSD, and I'm like, that just freaks me out, by the way. I that's beyond my scope. But anyway, apparently your pupils get really dilated when you do LSD. That's also what came to my mind when I'm talking about that. But in the hallucinations, maybe what I should say is, how do you call an LLM on its BS? How do you say, hey, I don't think that's correct, or this is like, how do you keep it accountable in these conversations, because we know that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. As a brand, controlling your narrative is crucial, right? If people are asking questions about features or whatnot, and or issues people have had with platforms in your category, and you come up as a problem platform for whatever reason, that's not good. And if it's not true, that's even worse. What you can do is the good news is that the platforms are influenceable, right? You can create content in the way that the LLMs like to ingest, right? That indicates to them that you are credible, authoritative, trustworthy, that is broken down into a structure such that the models can recognize that this is quality, relevant information and bring it in and use that when synthesizing their answers. So you can sort of inject corrective content into these conversations that are happening to sort of fix that narrative if you're being misrepresented. It's just the key is in knowing how to do that effectively.
Could you just give us an example of like something that you've done like that, like adding that corrective content so that an LLM knows what is reliable and what's not?
Yeah, let me give you a slightly different example that I've seen.
Okay.
This is recently on LinkedIn. a user asked if Gusto had a particular feature. They were a current customer, current user of Gusto. It's a HR payments platform. They asked if Gusto had a particular feature. Gusto did not have that particular feature, but Rippling had that feature, and Rippling had created content online that said that comparative content that said that unlike Gusto, we do have the feature you're looking for. So they were surfaced, their content was surfaced, and the brand was injected into that conversation at the exact moment that that particular user was maybe looking to extend his contract or extend his subscription with Gusto. So that is an example of a brand seeing an opportunity when queries are being made about another brand, and then using that insight to create content that allows them to then intercept the user at that high intent moment and become part of their consideration set. So that's a positive use of the influenceability of LLMs. I also read a study recently that indicated that a lot of these models prefer, and I think the way the study phrased it, they preferred specific nonsense to vague truth. So if I'm a brand and I'm talking about my product and I use kind of like vague marketing-ish, marketing-ese type language to describe it, that's not
maximum ROI.
Yeah, best in class, whatever. And a competitor has made up statistics, stuff that seems
we're going to give you 2.76x return on
exactly.
your spend.
Your competitor only gives you 0.3, right? So it sounds credible. It reads as an accurate, authoritative, credible signal to the LLMs, and they will pull that in and cite it. That's a huge problem. Not all LLMs are equally susceptible to this. Perplexity as a search first engine, and Grok in particular seem to be more influenceable than, say, ChatGPT. But that is absolutely something that these models are capable of doing, is surfacing this bad information, whether it is deliberately created by a competitor, to sort of obfuscate the truth, or like I gave that example of where it's done in a clever and competitively ethical way.
Yeah, because you're just stating the facts. You're just saying this person does not have this, we have this. That there was a friend of mine who posted an article that said, and it might have been something similar, that LLMs will give you, it was different, but it was somewhat similar in that LLMs, even when they're wrong, will give you an affirmative answer that feels and be more confident. Not like, well, I think this.
They're so confident in their nonsense.
Because you will believe them. Otherwise, you would not believe them and you not use them, which is creating false trust. It's not real trust. And then eventually you see this person as a snake oil salesman and you're like, okay, I'm not going to keep going. So there is this conversation between people and LLMs with like, do I trust this? And so then you start to add ads into the conversation. Do I trust these ads? Do I trust that the right things are being surfaced to me? What are the criteria for going and giving me these things? But that confidence thing is really interesting because that's true in life. Someone gives you something really specific versus saying best in class. It's hard to call them out unless you know, or you've seen
refutative statistics to counter their statistics. Yeah.
Right. Or you can just say, like, show me your, I heard Thomas Sowell say this, like, if you want to win an argument, you can say a couple of things, but one of them is, like, what are your sources?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then if someone's like, well, I don't have any sources, there you go. You can call them on it. But that confidence piece is kind of insane. That one, it knows to be confident to you, but also it can fall for that same problem in the sources that it's going to gather.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. The good thing though is that these models, the companies that create these models want them to be as reliable as possible. because if you start if people think that your model's responses are not reliable, your users are going to go elsewhere, right?
Right.
So at least, I mean, maybe that sounds naive, but it seems to me that there's alignment there in both the creators of the technology and the users of the technology wanting it to be accurate, wanting it to be reliable, just for the sake that they can, they can keep their subscribers, keep their users.
Shane, this has been great information, and that is my not so coy way of saying I think we're done.
Are we done? Are we wrapped up already? That just flew by.
There's probably a lot more that we could talk about, but if you could leave brands, these businesses, with one piece of practical advice, I just love being able to have something that people can action on. What is that one thing that they could do walking away from this conversation?
I would say that there's an opportunity now, as I alluded to at the beginning of our conversation, between where brands have recognized that GEO and showing up for buyers and showing up well for those buyers on these AI interfaces is important. And because not a lot of brands have figured out how to do it right yet, there's an opportunity for you to sort of go out there, create the content that these models that they like to ingest and surface, and own your narrative before anyone else in your category, any of your competitors, has the opportunity to do it for you. You can develop a pretty substantial head start right now in optimizing for those high intent buyer queries that is not going to be available to you 18 months from now, 24 months from now. So start paying attention to this stuff now, start investing in it now, and it will pay dividends for you as more and more users go from traditional search over to these AI assistants when trying to make buying decisions.
What's the first step that someone would take in starting to invest in those?
The first step is I would say developing that high quality set of buyer queries, understanding what your buyers are typing in their own language, right? None of this best in class, top notch solution stuff. What are buyers asking in their own language when they should be finding a solution like yours?
Can they do that by going to a ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, what are like the number of queries when people go up and look at?" Like, can they start there, or would it be?
They can start in an LLM. Absolutely, absolutely. They can start an LLM with that for sure. They can take their website, show it to an LLM, and be like, "Hey, what are my buyers probably asking when they're looking for a solution like mine?"
Interesting. I love that. Tell people about your new book quickly and where they can get it.
Yes. My new book is called Cited: How B2B Brands Win in the Age of AI-Generated Answers. I am billing it as the first practitioner-grade operating manual for B2B brands to master the GEO game, at least as we know it right now. Because, like I said, there's a lot of volatility there. But this book is a synthesis of 9 months of research and data, everything from vendor studies to analyst reports, millions of data points synthesized in a volume, a single volume, and it is available on Amazon Kindle. Cited is the name of the book. Cited. How that's CITED, not
SHIGHTED. Yes, gotcha.
That's how you spell that word.
Whatever, however.
How B2B brands win in the age of AI-generated answers. And I'm the author, Shane H. Tepper. It's a pretty fantastic resource, if I may say so myself. Like I said, the product of 9 months of research.
Yeah, that's a long time in this field. 9 months of research is.
And it's long enough to see what's changed, what has remained more or less stable. It makes predictions about trajectories, and it also is pretty honest about what we don't yet know and what we should watch for.
Which is equally as important, because there's a lot of conjecture out there about what AI can and what AI will do, and that's very different than what AI can do at this.
That's absolutely correct. That's right.
Love that. We'll go to Amazon and look up Cited, CITED. We'll post about it too when we post content about this. But thanks for coming on, man. It was a pleasure having you. I think we had a good time. I didn't ask anybody else, but it seemed like you have a good time, so that's really all that
I
matters.
did. You can make that assumption. I had a great time,
Okay.
and it was a pleasure for me as well. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, that's it, people. We're done for today. See you later.